Millionaire CEO hated homeless people and ignored them, until she found 6-year-old girls sleeping in playground. When she discovered the reason, she cried. Why do you think she was sleeping on the street? The click of designer heels echoed through Manhattan's morning silence as Rachel Montgomery strode down Fifth Avenue, her perfectly tailored coat billowing behind her like a dark omen. At 40, she commanded respect and fear, in equal measure CEO of Montgomery Corp., worth $300 million, and colder than the March wind cutting through the city streets. Disgusting, she muttered, stepping around a homeless man huddled near the subway entrance. Her emerald eyes, once warm like her twin sisters, now held nothing but contempt. The city's becoming a cesspool. Rachel's phone buzzed incessantly. Tokyo was calling about the merger. London needed contract approvals, and her assistant Jennifer was already panicking about the morning's board meeting. This was her life constant motion. Endless profit, zero emotional attachment. Mrs. Montgomery, Jennifer's voice crackled through her earpiece as she climbed into her black Mercedes. Your parents called again about Easter dinner. Should one decline? I'll be in Singapore. Rachel's voice was sharp as surgical steel. She'd built her empire by cutting away everything soft, everything vulnerable. Family dinners were for people who had time to waste on sentiment. The car glided through traffic toward the gleaming Montgomery building, where her corner office on the 52nd floor waited like a throne. But as they passed Central Park, Rachel's gaze fell on a small figure curled on a bench. A child, maybe 8 or 9, with dark hair and threadbare clothes, shivering in the cold. Pathetic, she whispered, but something twisted in her chest. For just a moment, the child's profile reminded her of someone she'd spent years trying to forget. Her phone rang again. Rachel Montgomery. Ms. Montgomery, this is Detective Phillips, NYPD. We need to discuss your sister Sarah's case. There's been a development regarding the child. Rachel's blood froze. Sarah, her twin sister, dead 2 years now, and Rachel had never even attended the funeral. She'd been in Tokyo, closing the biggest deal of her career, telling herself that success mattered more than grief. I have no sister, Rachel said, her voice deadly quiet. Don't call this number again. She hung up, but her hands were shaking. Outside, the child on the bench stirred, and when she lifted her face toward the car window, Rachel saw eyes that haunted her dreams. Sarah's eyes, wide and green, and full of desperate hope. The little girl's lips moved, forming words Rachel couldn't hear, but somehow understood. Please, help me. Rachel's world tilted. After 2 years of silence, was the past finally coming to claim her? The March blizzard came without warning, transforming Manhattan into a frozen wasteland within hours. Rachel's Mercedes crawled through the whiteout until the engine finally gave up, steam rising from under the hood like a death rattle. Ma'am, I'll call for another car, her driver stammered, but his phone showed no signal. The storm had knocked out half the city's cell towers. Rachel stepped onto the sidewalk, her $1,000 heels sliding on the ice. The wind cut through her coat like knives, and for the first time in years, she felt truly vulnerable. Through the swirling snow, she spotted the outline of Central Park's entrance shelter. But as she stumbled toward the park, she heard it, a weak coughing that sounded more like a wounded animal than a human being. There, huddled beneath a newspaper that was already soaked through, was the same child she'd seen that morning. Little girl was shaking so violently that the bench beneath her rattled. Her lips were blue, her breathing shallow and ragged. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, with delicate Asian features and long dark hair that clung to her fevered face. Hey, Rachel called out, her voice softer than she'd intended. Hey, kid. The child's eyes fluttered open, and Rachel's world stopped spinning. Those eyes. God, those eyes were exactly like Sarah's. The same shade of emerald green, the same shape, the same way they seemed to hold all the sadness in the world. I'm sorry, the little girl whispered, trying to scramble away. I didn't mean to bother anyone. I'll move. But when she tried to stand, her legs buckled. She collapsed back onto the bench, her small body racked with fever chills that made Rachel's heart clench with an emotion she'd forgotten how to feel. No, don't move. Rachel found herself kneeling in the snow, her expensive coat soaking through. What's your name, sweetheart? The child looked up at her with those impossibly familiar eyes, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Mia. Mia Chun. The name hit Rachel like a physical blow. Chun. Her sister Sarah had married David Chun against their parents' wishes. Rachel had cut all contact after that, telling herself that Sarah had chosen her path. Your mother. Rachel's voice came out as a croak. What was your mother's name? Mia's fevered eyes focused on Rachel's face with startling intensity. Sarah. My mommy was Sarah Chun. She tilted her head in a gesture so heartbreakingly familiar that Rachel gasped. She had a sister who looked just like her. She said her sister got lost in the money and forgot how to love. Rachel's hands trembled as the pieces crashed together. This wasn't just any homeless child. This was Sarah's daughter. Her niece. The family she'd abandoned was staring at her with Sarah's eyes, dying in the snow. Mia, Rachel whispered. I'm Rachel. I'm your aunt. But Mia's eyes were already rolling back, her small body going limp as the fever claimed her consciousness. Rachel's scream pierced the storm as Mia collapsed in her arms. The child's body was burning with fever, yet she shivered uncontrollably. Rachel pressed her ear to the tiny chest. The heartbeat was rapid and weak. No, no, Rachel whispered, scooping Mia up. The little girl weighed almost nothing, her body fragile as a bird's. Stay with me, baby? Please stay with me. Through the blizzard, Rachel spotted the golden glow of a hotel across the street. She ran, slipping and sliding, Mia's unconscious form clutched against her chest. The doorman's eyes widened as the city's most powerful CEO burst through the doors, covered in snow and carrying a homeless child. Call 911, Rachel commanded. Now, in the warm lobby, Mia's eyes fluttered open briefly. Mommy? She whispered, then focused on Rachel's face. The lady. From the pictures. What pictures, sweetheart? Mommy showed me. Said you were her twin. Said you got lost, but... Mia's voice faded as her eyes closed again. The paramedics arrived within minutes, their faces grim as they checked Mia's vitals. Severe pneumonia, malnutrition, possible hypothermia, one muttered. How long has she been on the streets? Rachel's throat closed. She didn't know. She didn't know anything about this child, her own flesh and blood. At Mount Sinai Hospital, Rachel paced the waiting room like a caged animal. She'd lied to the intake nurse, claiming to be Maya's guardian to ensure the best care. Her phone buzzed constantly board meetings, international calls, $1 million decisions, but for the first time in her career, Rachel ignored them all. Ms. Montgomery? Dr. Williams approached with a clipboard. The child is stable but critical. She's severely malnourished and has been living rough for months. Do you have any medical history? Family information? Rachel's mind raced. I need to make some calls. Within an hour, her private investigators had assembled a file that made Rachel's blood run cold. Sarah Chun, née Montgomery, had died in a car accident 2 years ago. David Chun had succumbed to cancer 6 months later. Their daughter, Mia, had been placed with David's elderly parents, who had died in a nursing home just 8 months ago. The most devastating detail came last. David's brothers had taken custody of Mia, but abandoned her on the streets 6 months ago, claiming she was too expensive to keep, and they couldn't handle a mixed-race kid. Rachel stared at the report, her hands shaking. While she'd been building her empire, expanding to Asian markets, closing deals in Tokyo, her sister had been dying. Sarah had tried to call her the night before the accident, 17 missed calls that Rachel had ignored because she was in a business dinner. "Ma'am?" The investigator's voice seemed to come from far away. "There's one more thing. Sarah left a letter with her attorney, addressed to you. It was never delivered because no one knew how to reach you after you changed your contact information." Rachel's world crumbled as she read Sarah's final words. "Rachel, if something happens to me, please take care of Mia. She's all that's left of our family's love. I know you're angry with me for marrying David, but please don't let that anger hurt an innocent child. She has your eyes, your stubborn spirit, and my heart. Please don't let her become lost like we did." Through the hospital window, Rachel could see Mia's tiny form surrounded by machines, fighting for her life. The sister she'd abandoned was gone forever, but the niece she'd never known was still fighting. And Rachel finally understood that some mistakes can never be undone. They can only be redeemed. The sterile hospital room felt like a tomb as Rachel sat beside Mia's bed, watching the rise and fall of the child's chest through the oxygen mask. Machines beeped steadily, marking each precious heartbeat. The doctors had been blunt. Without immediate intervention, Mia might not survive the night. "She's been fighting malnutrition for months," Dr. Williams explained, his voice heavy with concern. "Her immune system is completely compromised. We're doing everything we can, but..." Rachel's hand trembled as she touched Mia's burning forehead. The child's dark hair was matted with sweat, her small face pale except for the fever flush on her cheeks. Even unconscious, she looked afraid. "How long?" Rachel's voice came out as a whisper. "We'll know more in the next 12 hours. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from her lead investigator. "Full report ready. You need to see this immediately." She stepped into the hallway to read the devastating file. The timeline was brutal in its clarity. Sarah had died on March 15, 2022, during an ice storm remarkably similar to today's blizzard. David had fought cancer for 18 months afterward, trying to care for a grieving 4-year-old Mia while undergoing chemotherapy. The photographs in the file showed a man wasting away, clutching his daughter's hand during hospital visits. David's final Facebook post, dated 6 months ago, was a desperate plea. "Please pray for my little girl. I won't be here much longer to protect her." Rachel's hands shook as she read David's brother's statement to Child Services. "We can't afford another mouth to feed. The girl doesn't even look Chinese. She's some mixed breed that doesn't belong anywhere. Let the state deal with her." They had literally put 6-year-old Mia on a bus to nowhere with nothing but a small backpack and $20. "Mrs. Montgomery?" A nurse appeared at her elbow. "The little girl is asking for you." Rachel rushed back to find Mia's eyes open, though clouded with fever. The oxygen mask had been removed, replaced with a nasal cannula. "Are you really my aunt?" Mia's voice was barely audible. Rachel's throat closed. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your Mommy's sister. Mommy said you were busy being important." Mia's eyes studied Rachel's face with unsettling intensity. "She said you forgot how to love people because you loved money more." The words hit like physical blows, but Rachel forced herself to lean closer. "Your mommy was right. I did forget. But I remember now. Are you going to send me away too?" Fear flickered in those green eyes, Sarah's eyes. "Uncle Tommy said I was too much trouble, that nobody wants kids like me." Rachel's heart shattered completely. "No, baby, never. I'm going to take care of you. I promise." "Promise like Uncle Tommy promised?" "He said he'd keep me safe, but then he put me on the bus and told me not to come back." Rachel gently took Mia's small hand. "I promise like your mommy would promise. The kind of promise that can never be broken." For the first time, Mia smiled a ghost of Sarah's radiant grin. Mommy's promises were magic. She said love promises always come true, even when everything else is scary. That's right, Rachel whispered, her voice breaking. Love promises are magic. As Mia drifted back to sleep, Rachel made a vow that echoed through the sterile hospital air. She would move heaven and earth to save this child. She would dismantle her empire, piece by piece, if necessary. Because Mia wasn't just Sarah's daughter. She was the last piece of Rachel's soul, the only chance at redemption she would ever get. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside that hospital room, something warm and long forgotten began to bloom in Rachel Montgomery's frozen heart. The hospital chair had become Rachel's prison for the past 18 hours. She hadn't left Mia's side except to pace the hallway when the guilt became too suffocating to bear. Her phone had died hours ago from ignored calls, and her assistant Jennifer had probably had 3 nervous breakdowns by now. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except the little girl fighting for her life behind those closed eyelids. "Ma'am?" A young orderly approached hesitantly. "There's a lawyer here to see you." "Says it's about Sarah Chun's estate?" Rachel's blood chilled. "Send him in." Harold Whitman was a small, nervous man with kind eyes who clearly felt uncomfortable in the ICU. He clutched a manila envelope like a lifeline. "Ms. Montgomery, I've been trying to reach you for 2 years. I was Sarah's attorney. When she died, she left specific instructions." He paused, studying Rachel's disheveled appearance. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately?" "No." Rachel's voice was steel. "Whatever you have to say it here. She's my family." Mr. Whitman glanced at Mia's sleeping form and softened. "Sarah came to me 3 weeks before she died. She was terrified something would happen to her. Said she'd been having nightmares about leaving Mia alone. She made me promise to find you if the worst happened." He opened the envelope with shaking hands. "She tried calling you that last night. 17 times, according to her phone records. She was driving to the airport, trying to fly to Tokyo to see you. The accident happened on the way." The room spun around Rachel. She was coming to see me? She never stopped loving you. Miss Montgomery. She blamed herself for the family rift. Said she should have fought harder to keep you close, instead of letting pride tear you both apart. Mr. Whitman pulled out a thick letter, its edges worn from handling. "She wrote this the day before she died. Made me read it to ensure I understood her final wishes." Rachel's hands trembled as she unfolded pages covered in Sarah's familiar handwriting. Asterisk, "My dearest Rachel, my other half, my twin soul. If you're reading this, and my worst fears have come true, and I'm gone, I pray that Harold found you in time that you're reading this while Mia is safe in your arms. I know you think I chose David over you, over family. But Rachel, I chose love. I chose the chance to build something beautiful instead of destroying everything with fear. I hoped you'd understand someday. I never stopped calling because I never stopped hoping you'd remember who we used to be. Do you remember when we were 8 and I fell through the ice at the pond? You jumped in after me, without hesitation. You almost drowned saving me. That's who you really are, Rachel, someone who saves people, not someone who abandons them. Mia has your eyes, your fierce intelligence, your stubborn determination. But she also has something you forgot. You had an infinite capacity for love. She talks about you constantly, from the photos I've shown her. She calls you the lost aunt, and prays every night that you'll find your way home. Please don't let my mistakes cost her everything. Please don't let the Montgomery pride destroy another generation. She's not just my daughter, she's your legacy. 2. She's proof that love can triumph over fear, that family is stronger than money. If you're reading this, then you already know the truth. We were never really separate people. We were 2 halves of the same soul, and losing you was like losing myself. Save her, Rachel. Save her, and maybe you'll save yourself too. All my love. Always and forever. SRHPS. I've enclosed grandmother's ring, the one mother promised to the first of us to find true love. I found mine with David. Now it's your turn to find yours. With Mia. Family love counts too. Asterisk Rachel's sobs echoed through the ICU as she opened the small velvet box. Inside was their grandmother's emerald ring, the one they'd both dreamed of wearing as children. There's more, Mr. Whitman said gently. Sarah established a trust fund for Mia, but it requires a family member as guardian. She was so certain you'd come for her. Through her tears, Rachel looked at Mia's peaceful face. Even in sleep, the child looked like she was waiting for something or someone. She knew, Rachel whispered. Sarah knew I'd find her eventually. As if responding to her voice, Mia stirred, her green eyes opening slowly. Aunt Rachel? Why are you crying? Rachel leaned forward, clutching Sarah's letter. Because I just got a message from your mommy, and she told me exactly what I needed to hear. The sound of expensive heels clicking down the hospital corridor announced their arrival before Rachel even saw them. Margaret and Richard Montgomery entered the ICU like conquering generals, their faces carved from stone and radiating the kind of cold fury that had built empires and destroyed lives. Rachel, her mother's voice could have frozen fire. What is the meaning of this circus? Richard Montgomery, 72 years old and still commanding boardrooms with his presence, surveyed the scene with disgust. His steel-gray eyes landed on Mia's sleeping form, and his lip curled. So it's true, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. You've actually brought that child into our family's business. Rachel stood slowly, placing herself between her parents and Mia's bed. Her name is Mia. She's your granddaughter. Margaret's laugh was bitter as winter wind. That half-breed is no granddaughter of mine. Sarah made her choice when she married that Chinese man against our wishes. We told her the consequences. You knew about her? Rachel's voice was deadly quiet. You knew Mia existed? Of course we knew. Richard adjusted his platinum cufflinks, a gesture that had intimidated senators and CEOs. We've been sending money to David's parents for years. $5,000 a month to keep that mistake away from our family name. The casual cruelty of it hit Rachel like a physical blow. You paid them to hide her? We paid them to handle a problem, Margaret snapped. Sarah created this mess when she chose to pollute our bloodline. We simply managed the aftermath. Rachel's hands clenched into fists. She's 7 years old. She's been living on the streets for months. And you knew? The old Chinese couple died. Richard said dismissively. Their sons couldn't handle the responsibility. Natural selection, really. Some children simply aren't meant to survive. Behind them, Mia stirred, her eyes opening to the sound of raised voices. Rachel saw the exact moment the child registered the hostility in the room. Her small body tensed, and she tried to make herself invisible against the pillows. Get out. Rachel's voice was low and dangerous. Margaret stepped closer, her designer perfume mixing with the antiseptic smell of the hospital. Don't be ridiculous, Rachel. You can't seriously be considering keeping this creature. Think about what it will do to your reputation, your business relationships. Our Asian investors will think we've lost our minds, Richard added. Adopting some street orphan with questionable parentage? The Montgomery name means something, Rachel. We won't let you destroy 3 generations of careful breeding for a sentimental whim. I said get out. Rachel's voice rose, and several nurses looked their way. You ungrateful child. Margaret's mask of control slipped, revealing the venom beneath. Everything you have, everything you are, comes from this family. That company, that fortune, that life of luxury, All of it depends on maintaining our standards. Richard pulled out his phone. I'm calling our attorney. We'll have that child removed from your custody within the hour. She belongs in foster care with her own kind. Her own kind? Rachel's voice echoed through the ICU. She's my sister's daughter. My blood. My family. Sarah stopped being family the day she spread her legs for a foreigner, Margaret hissed. The slap echoed through the hospital corridor like a gunshot. Margaret stumbled backward, her hand flying to her reddening cheek, shock replacing her usual imperious expression. How dare you? Richard started forward, but Rachel's fury stopped him cold. How dare I? Rachel's voice was barely controlled. Rage. How dare you let a 7-year-old child nearly die on the streets while you played your sick games of racial purity? How dare you erase my sister's existence and her daughter's life for your precious reputation? Rachel, Mia's frightened voice cut through the argument. The little girl was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. Please don't fight because of me. I can go away. I'm good at being invisible. The heartbreaking resignation in that tiny voice shattered something fundamental in Rachel's chest. She turned to her parents with a fury that had been building for 40 years. You want to disown me? Do it. Cut me off. Take the company. Burn our family name to the ground. I don't care anymore. She moved to Mia's bedside, taking the child's trembling hand. Because I choose her. I choose love over money, family over reputation, and humanity over your twisted version of superiority. Richard's face turned purple with rage. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. No, Rachel said quietly, her eyes never leaving. Mia's face. The biggest mistake of my life was listening to you for 40 years instead of following my heart. As her parents stormed out, Rachel heard her mother's parting shot. Don't come crawling back when reality hits, Rachel. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Rachel pulled Mia into her arms as the child sobbed. Are they really gone? Mia whispered double quotes, yes, sweetheart, and they're never coming back. For the first time in her life, Rachel Montgomery was truly free. 3 days later, Mia was finally stable enough to sit up and eat solid food. Rachel had barely left the hospital, surviving on vending machine coffee and the occasional sandwich that Jennifer smuggled in. The corporate world had continued spinning without her, and for the first time in her life, Rachel didn't care. Aunt. Rachel? Mia's voice was stronger now, though still fragile. She was picking at a bowl of chicken soup, her movements careful and precise. Can I tell you a secret? Rachel set down her laptop. She'd been trying to reschedule the Tokyo merger and gave Mia her full attention. Of course, sweetheart. Mia's green eyes, so heartbreakingly like Sarah's, studied Rachel's face with an intensity that seemed far too mature for a 7-year-old. I knew who you were. On the streets, I mean. I saw you lots of times. Rachel's breath caught. You did? Mommy showed me pictures of you too when you were little. She kept them in a special box with Daddy's letters. And Grandma's jewelry. Mia's fingers twisted in the hospital blanket. She used to tell me stories about the twin sisters who could read each other's minds and finish each other's sentences. The guilt hit Rachel like a physical weight. How long ago did you first see me, Mia? Maybe 6 months? You walked past the park where I was sleeping. You had on a blue coat and you were talking very fast on your phone. Mia's voice dropped to a whisper. I wanted to call out to you, but Mommy always said you were busy being important, and I looked too dirty and scary. Rachel closed her eyes, remembering. 6 months ago, she'd been walking through Central Park after a breakfast meeting, probably, complaining about quarterly reports or stock prices. Her own niece had been watching her, hungry and alone, and Rachel had walked right past. Why didn't you try to talk to me? Mia's shoulders hunched with shame. Uncle Tommy said I was too much trouble for anybody. He said even family didn't want kids like me. That's why he put me on the bus. I didn't want you to be angry that I bothered you. Rachel's heart shattered anew. Oh, baby, you could never be trouble. Never. But I heard the mean lady and man. Yesterday, they said I was a mistake. Mia's eyes filled with tears. Maybe Uncle Tommy was right. Maybe I don't belong anywhere. Rachel moved to the bed and carefully gathered Mia into her arms. Listen to me very carefully, Mia-chan. You are not a mistake. You are not too much trouble. You are Sarah's greatest gift to this world, and you belong exactly where you are with me. Mia pulled back to search Rachel's face. Really? Even though I'm mixed up looking and I don't have money for fancy clothes? Especially because you're exactly who you are. Rachel smoothed Mia's dark hair. Do you know what your mommy used to say when we were little? And kids were mean to us? Mia shook her head. She'd say, Rachel, different isn't wrong, different is brave. And brave girls change the world, Rachel's voice caught. Your mommy was the bravest person I ever knew. And you're just like her. Mommy said something else. About you. Mia's voice was barely audible. What did she say? She said you got lost in a place where everything was cold and sharp, but someday love would bring you home. She made me promise to forgive you when you found your way back, because getting lost isn't the same as being mad. Rachel's tears came without warning. Your mommy was very wise. She was magic. Mia's smile was pure Sarah radiant and full of hope. She said love was the strongest magic in the whole world, stronger than money, or being scared, or even dying. She said love makes broken things whole again. Is that what you think is happening to us? Mia nodded solemnly. Mommy's love brought you to find me. And maybe my love can help you remember how to be happy again. As Rachel held her niece close, she realized that Mia wasn't just Sarah's daughter. She was Sarah's final masterpiece. A living embodiment of all the love and wisdom that Rachel had walked away from years ago. The child she'd saved was actually saving her. Rachel's penthouse had never felt more like a museum than it did, with Mia standing in the doorway, clutching a small hospital bag containing her few possessions. The child's eyes were wide as she took in the stark white walls, gleaming marble floors, and furniture that looked like it belonged behind velvet ropes. It's very clean, Mia said politely, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Rachel suddenly saw her home through a 7-year-old's eyes, cold, intimidating, and utterly unwelcoming. Would you like to see your room? I had my assistant set it up. She led Mia down the hallway to what had been her home office. Jennifer had worked miracles. In 48 hours, transforming the space with a canopy bed, stuffed animals, and enough toys to stock a small store. Everything was pink and pristine and expensive. Mia stood frozen in the doorway. This is for me? Do you like it? Rachel asked anxiously, but Mia's reaction wasn't what she'd expected. Instead of excitement, the child looked overwhelmed and slightly terrified. It's very fancy, Mia whispered. What if I break something? Rachel's heart clenched. Sweetheart, nothing in here is more important than you. You can't break anything that matters. But as the evening wore on, Rachel realized how unprepared she was for this reality. Mia barely touched the gourmet dinner Rachel had catered, instead asking for plain rice like Daddy made. She ignored the elaborate dollhouse to curl up with a ratty stuffed elephant that had survived her time on the streets. When bedtime came, Mia's carefully controlled composure finally cracked. I can't sleep in there, she sobbed, pointing at the beautiful bedroom. It's too big and too quiet and too perfect. What if I have a bad dream and mess up the pretty covers? What do you mean, baby? Uncle Tommy said I wasn't allowed to have bad dreams. When I cried at night, he locked me in the closet so I wouldn't wake up his real kids. Mia's voice was barely a whisper. The dark was scary, but at least in the closet I couldn't break anything expensive. Rachel's fury at David's brothers burned white hot, but she forced her voice to stay gentle. "Would you feel safer sleeping in my room tonight?" Mia nodded frantically. They ended up on Rachel's king-size bed, Mia curled against Rachel's side like a lost kitten. In the soft lamplight, the child pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her elephant's belly. "Mommy taught me how to make these," she said, carefully unfolding what Rachel realized was a paper doll chained simple figures holding hands, cut from old magazines. She said, "Even when people go away, love connects us like paper dolls. See, this one is Mommy. This one is Daddy, and this one is you." Rachel stared at the tiny paper figure with long blonde hair. "I'm in your chain? Mommy put you there the day I was born." She said families are connected by invisible strings, even when they're far apart. Mia's fingers traced the delicate paper links. "Want me to teach you how to make them?" For the next hour, Rachel found herself sitting cross-legged on her expensive silk comforter, carefully cutting magazine pictures, while Mia instructed her with the patience of a wise old teacher. "No, Aunt Rachel, you have to leave the hands touching or they'll fall apart." Mia giggled as Rachel's first attempt crumbled. "Mommy said the hands are the most important part. That's where the love lives." As they worked together, Mia's stories poured out memories of Sarah singing lullabies in both English and Mandarin, of David teaching her to fold origami cranes, of quiet Sunday mornings when they'd make pancakes and tell silly jokes. "They loved each other so much," Mia said softly. "Even when Daddy was really sick, he'd still dance with Mommy in the kitchen." She said true love makes everything beautiful, even the sad parts. Rachel's throat tightened. "They sound wonderful." They were, but they're not gone, you know. Mommy said love never really dies. It just changes shape. Like how caterpillars turn into butterflies, but they're still the same beautiful thing inside. As Mia finally drifted to sleep, still clutching their paper doll chain, Rachel realized she'd learned more about love in one evening than in 40 years of living. The child wasn't just Sarah's daughter. She was Sarah's living legacy, carrying forward all the warmth and wisdom that Rachel had thought was lost forever. Chapter 9. The legal battle begins. The summons arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a stern-faced process server who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Rachel's hands trembled as she read the official documents, while Mia sat at the kitchen island, carefully arranging her cereal into smiley faces. Montgomery Family Trust versus Rachel Montgomery, emergency petition for child custody transfer. Her parents had made good on their threat. The legal papers painted Rachel as an unstable, single woman with no child-rearing experience who had impulsively taken custody of a traumatized minor without proper psychological evaluation. They claimed Mia would be better served in a stable two-parent home with relatives who could provide appropriate cultural guidance. The relatives in question were Margaret's distant cousins in Connecticut people Rachel had met exactly twice, who had no connection to Sarah or Mia whatsoever. "Aunt Rachel?" Mia's voice cut through her panic. "Why do you look scared?" Rachel forced a smile, quickly folding the papers. "Just some boring grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." But Mia's green eyes were too perceptive. "Is it about me? Are the mean people trying to take me away again?" The directness of the question caught Rachel off guard. She'd forgotten how intuitive children could be, how they could sense emotional storms even when adults tried to hide them. "Some people think they know what's best for you," Rachel said carefully. "But I'm going to fight for you, Mia. I promise." "Like in court? With lawyers and judges like on TV?" Rachel's heart sank. How did you explain legal warfare to a 7-year-old who'd already lost everyone she'd ever loved? The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. Rachel's attorney, David Park, was one of the city's best family lawyers, but he looked concerned as they reviewed the Montgomery family's petition. "They're claiming you're emotionally unstable due to your estrangement from family," David explained. "They've provided testimony from former employees about your cold and demanding management style. They're painting a picture of someone incapable of nurturing a traumatized child. What about Mia's wishes? She's 7. The court will consider her feelings, but ultimately they'll focus on what they perceive as her best interests." David's expression was grim. "Rachel, your parents have resources. They've hired Whitman, Cross, and Associates, the same firm that handles celebrity custody battles. The preliminary hearing was a nightmare. Rachel sat in the sterile courtroom, watching her parents' attorneys present a case that made her sound like a monster. They had affidavits from former business rivals calling her ruthlessly ambitious and emotionally unavailable. They'd even found her old college roommate, who testified that Rachel had once said she never wanted children because they were inconvenient. The worst moment came when Margaret took the stand, tears streaming down her face. Tears Rachel knew were completely fabricated. "Your Honor," Margaret sobbed, "my daughter has had a mental breakdown. She's destroyed her relationship with her family, abandoned her responsibilities, and fixated on this poor child as some kind of redemption project. Mia needs stability, not someone working through their own psychological issues." Rachel's nails dug into her palms as she watched her. Mother performed the role of concerned grandmother. The judge, an elderly man who clearly sympathized with Margaret's grandmotherly concern, nodded thoughtfully. "Ms. Montgomery," Judge Harrison addressed Rachel directly, "can you explain why, after showing no interest in your niece for 7 years, you're suddenly prepared to uproot your entire life for her?" Rachel stood, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Because I was wrong, Your Honor. I spent so many years building walls around my heart that I forgot what those walls were supposed to protect. Mia isn't my redemption project, she's my family. She's the daughter of my twin sister, who died believing I didn't care enough to answer her calls. But surely you understand that good intentions aren't enough? Child-rearing requires experience, patience, emotional availability." "Then let me prove it," Rachel interrupted. "Give me the chance to show you who I've become since Mia entered my life. Give me the chance to honor my sister's memory by raising her daughter with love instead of abandoning her to strangers." Judge Harrison studied her for a long moment. "I'm ordering a 6-week evaluation period. Mia will remain in your custody, but you'll undergo psychological assessment, parenting classes, and regular home visits from child services. If there's any evidence that this arrangement is harmful to the child," he didn't need to finish the threat. As they left the courthouse, Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning." Margaret Montgomery never gave up a fight, and this war was far from over. The thunder started at midnight, rolling across Manhattan like an angry God's voice. Rachel jerked awake to the sound of lightning splitting the sky, followed by the kind of rain that turns city streets into rivers. But it wasn't the storm that made her heart race. It was the small, terrified sob coming from down the hallway. Found Mia curled in a tight ball on her bedroom floor, shaking violently. The child's eyes were wide with terror, but she wasn't seeing the beautiful bedroom around her. She was somewhere else entirely, somewhere cold and dark, and filled with the ghosts of abandonment. "Mommy?" Mia whispered, her voice broken with anguish. "Mommy, please come back. I'm so cold. I'm so scared. Please don't leave me alone in the dark." Rachel's heart shattered as she realized Mia was reliving that first night on the streets. Night her uncles had abandoned her with nothing but a torn backpack and $20. The thunder sounded like car doors slamming, the rain like the tears she'd cried into empty darkness. "Sweetheart, it's okay. You're safe. You're with Aunt Rachel." Rachel knelt beside the trembling child, but Mia flinched away from her touch. "They said they'd come back," Mia sobbed. "Uncle Tommy said it was just for one night, that someone would come get me. But nobody came. Nobody ever came. The rain soaked through my jacket, and I couldn't find anywhere warm, and the other street people said a little girl wouldn't last long alone." The raw pain in that tiny voice made Rachel's soul bleed. Without thinking, she began to hum softly a melody that came from somewhere deep in her childhood memories. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Mia's sobbing stopped abruptly. She looked up at Rachel with wonder and recognition dawning in her tear-filled eyes. "You make me happy when skies are gray." "Mommy's song," Mia whispered. "That was Mommy's special song." Rachel's voice cracked as the memories flooded back. She used to sing it to both of us when we were little and scared of thunderstorms. We'd crawl into bed together, and Sarah would sing until the lightning stopped being scary. "You'll never know, dear, how much I love you." Mia crawled into Rachel's lap, her small body still trembling, but no longer rigid with terror. "Mommy said you knew this song too. She said it was proof that you still had the same heart, even when you forgot how to use it." "Please don't take my sunshine away," Rachel finished, holding Mia close as the thunder rolled overhead. "Aunt Rachel?" Mia's voice was small against Rachel's shoulder. "Will you stay with me until the storm stops? I promise I won't be too much trouble." "You're never troubled, baby. Never." Rachel lifted Mia and carried her to the big bed. "We'll wait out the storm together, just like your mommy and I used to do." They lay together in the soft lamplight, Mia's head on Rachel's shoulder as the rain pattered against the windows. The child's breathing gradually steadied, but she kept one small hand clutched in Rachel's silk pajama top, as if afraid Rachel might disappear like everyone else had. "Aunt Rachel, are you really going to keep me forever?" "Forever and always, sweetheart. That's a sunshine promise." "What's a sunshine promise?" Rachel smoothed Mia's dark hair, her voice soft with memory. "It's the strongest kind of promise there is. Your mommy taught me that when we were 7 years old. A sunshine promise means that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how scary the storms are, the love will always shine through." Mia smiled sleepily. "Then I make you a sunshine promise too, Aunt Rachel. I promise to love you even when you're sad, and to help you remember how to be happy." As the storm passed and Mia finally slept peacefully in her arms, Rachel realized that something fundamental had shifted between them. They were no longer strangers learning to coexist. They were family, bound by the same invisible threads of love that had once connected her to Sarah. The scared, broken woman who had found a dying child in the snow was gone. In her place was someone Rachel barely recognized, someone who chose love over fear, warmth over perfection, and family over everything else that had once seemed important. The boardroom fell silent as Rachel Montgomery walked in 3 hours late to the most important merger meeting of the year. Her hair was in a simple ponytail instead of her usual sharp chignon, and there was what looked suspiciously like finger paint on her designer blazer. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, taking her seat at the head of the table, "I apologize for the delay. My daughter had a school presentation about family heritage that I couldn't miss." The collective intake of breath was audible. Rachel Montgomery didn't have a daughter. Rachel Montgomery had never missed a meeting for anything short of a natural disaster, and she certainly didn't call 7-year-old niece's daughter in front of Tokyo investors. "Rachel," Board Member Harrison Wild cleared his throat nervously. "Perhaps we should discuss your recent personal changes." "In private? No need." Rachel opened her laptop with the same confidence she'd always commanded, but something in her demeanor had fundamentally shifted. Yes, I've adopted my niece. Yes, I've restructured my priorities. And yes, this company will adapt accordingly. The next hour was unlike any meeting in Montgomery Corp's history. Rachel approved the merger, but insisted on adding clauses for employee family leave and childcare support. She rejected a proposed factory location because it would displace low-income housing. Most shocking of all, she announced the launch of a Sarah Chan Memorial Foundation, dedicating 10% of company profits to homeless family services. "You've lost your mind," Harrison muttered. Rachel's smile was serene. "I've found my soul. There's a difference." That evening, Rachel's penthouse looked like a completely different home. Gone were the sterile white walls, replaced by warm colors. And family photos. Mia's artwork covered the refrigerator, and the living room had been rearranged to accommodate a child-sized table where they did homework together each night. "Aunt Rachel, look." Mia burst through the door, her backpack flying. "I got an A on my math test." Mrs. Peterson said, "I'm the smartest kid in class." Rachel caught her in a fierce hug, spinning her around. "I'm so proud of you, sunshine. Can we make dumplings tonight? I want to show you how Daddy taught me to fold them." Rachel's heart squeezed. 3 months ago, she would have ordered takeout and worked through dinner. Now, her evenings belonged to homework help, cooking lessons, and bedtime stories. "Of course. But first, tell me about your presentation today." "I want to hear everything." Mia's face lit up. "I told everyone about our family tree. I drew Mommy and Daddy as angels watching over us, and I put you as the hero who saved me from the dragon of loneliness." "I'm the hero?" Rachel laughed, but her eyes were misty. "The biggest hero ever." Mrs. Peterson said family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to love someone every single day. "That's what you do, Aunt Rachel. You choose to love me every day, even when I have bad dreams or spill juice on your important papers." That night, as they folded dumplings together at the kitchen counter, Rachel marveled at how completely her life had transformed. Her phone sat silent. She'd learned to turn it off during family time. Her calendar, once packed with back-to-back meetings, now included parent-teacher conferences, doctor appointments, and something called Muffins with Mom at Mia's school. "Aunt Rachel?" Mia said softly, concentrating on her dumpling folding. "Do you ever miss your old life? When you didn't have to worry about taking care of a kid?" Rachel paused in her folding, studying Mia's serious expression. "Do you know what I miss about my old life?" Mia shook her head. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." Rachel gently lifted Mia's chin. "Because my old life was just existing sunshine. This us together, making dumplings, laughing over homework, singing in the car, this is living." Mia beamed. "Mommy always said love makes everything better, even the hard parts." "Your mommy was the wisest person I ever knew." As they worked side by side, Rachel realized that Mia hadn't just given her a family, she'd given her a completely new identity. She was no longer the ice queen of Manhattan. She was simply Aunt Rachel, maker of terrible dumplings and singer of off-key lullabies. And for the first time in her life, she was exactly who she wanted to be. The final custody hearing felt like stepping into a gladiator arena. Rachel sat in the front row of the courtroom, her hands folded calmly in her lap, while across the aisle, Margaret and Richard Montgomery glared at her with barely contained fury. 6 weeks of evaluation had led to this moment, the judge's final decision about Mia's future. All rise for the Honorable Judge Harrison. The courtroom rustled as everyone stood. Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced herself to breathe steadily. Beside her, David Park squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. Judge Harrison took his seat and opened the thick file containing 6 weeks of reports, psychological evaluations, and home visit assessments. His face revealed nothing as he studied the documents. This case has required careful consideration of what truly serves the best interests of minor child Mia Chun, he began. The court has reviewed extensive documentation regarding both custody petitions. Rachel's throat felt like sandpaper. Everything Mia's happiness, their future together, Sarah's final wish hung on this man's decision. The Montgomery Family Trust has presented compelling arguments about stability and resources. However, Judge Harrison paused, his eyes finding. Rachel's, this court is most concerned with emotional stability and the child's own expressed wishes. The judge's voice softened slightly. During my private interview with Mia Chun, she displayed remarkable wisdom for a 7-year-old. When asked about her preferences, she said something that particularly struck me. Aunt Rachel sees me when nobody else could see me. She loves me when I'm scared, and when I'm happy, and even when I spill things. That's what mommies and daddies do. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't dare move. The psychological evaluations paint a clear picture of genuine transformation in Ms. Rachel Montgomery. Dr. Williams notes that her adaptation to parenthood, while unconventional in timing, demonstrates authentic emotional growth and unwavering commitment to the child's welfare. Judge Harrison closed the file and looked directly at Rachel. Furthermore, the court notes that Mia Chun has thrived under Miss Montgomery's care. Her grades have improved dramatically. Her psychological assessments show decreased anxiety and increased security, and her social worker reports significant positive behavioral changes. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Therefore, this court hereby grants permanent custody of Mia Chun to her aunt, Rachel Montgomery. The Montgomery Family Trust's petition is denied. The gavel's bang echoed like thunder. Rachel gasped as relief flooded through her, followed immediately by David Park's congratulatory handshake and the sound of Margaret's furious heels clicking. Out of the courtroom. But the moment that mattered most came when the courtroom doors opened and Mia ran down the aisle, her face radiant with joy. "We won," she cried, launching herself into Rachel's arms. "The judge said I get to stay with you forever." "Forever and always, sunshine," Rachel whispered, holding her daughter, not niece, daughter tight against her chest. "Sunshine, promise." 2 weeks later, they stood in front of a charming brownstone in Brooklyn, its front yard filled with flowering trees and a tire swing hanging from an old oak. It was everything Manhattan wasn't: warm, welcoming, and perfectly imperfect. "This is really ours?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "Every brick, every window, every creaky floorboard," Rachel laughed. "What do you think?" "I think Mommy would love it. She always wanted a house with a garden where I could plant flowers." They walked through their new home hand in hand, Mia's excited chatter filling the empty rooms with plans for decorating and furniture placement. In the master bedroom, Rachel found a moment of quiet as Mia explored the walk-in closet. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "The board is asking when you'll be back to full-time hours." Rachel typed back, "Never. My daughter comes first." Now, as she watched Mia dance through the sunlit rooms, Rachel realized that losing her parents' approval, stepping back from corporate dominance, and choosing love over ambition hadn't cost her anything that truly mattered. It had simply brought her home. The cemetery was quiet except for the soft rustle of autumn leaves as Rachel and Mia walked hand in hand down the winding path. It had taken Rachel 8 months to find the courage for this visit. 8 months to build the strength she'd need to face Sarah's grave without crumbling. Mia carried a small bouquet of sunflowers they picked from their garden that morning, her steps careful and reverent. She'd been asking about visiting Mommy's resting place for weeks, and Rachel finally understood that this journey was necessary for both of them. "Is that her?" Mia whispered, pointing to a simple granite headstone. "Engraved with Sarah Chun, beloved wife and mother. Her love lives on." Rachel's throat closed as she knelt beside the grave, her fingers tracing the letters of her sister's name. Yes, baby. This is where your mommy rests. Mia placed the sunflowers gently against the headstone, then settled cross-legged on the grass with the natural ease of childhood. Hi, Mommy. I brought Aunt Rachel like you wanted. She's not lost anymore. Rachel's tears came silently as she watched her daughter speak to Sarah with such simple faith. The guilt she'd carried for 2 years felt heavier than ever in this peaceful place. Sarah. Rachel's voice was barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm sorry. I let pride and stupidity keep us apart. I'm sorry you died thinking I didn't love you. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead in what felt almost like a gentle response. But I want you to know, I love her. I love Mia with everything I have, everything I am. She's taught me how to be human again. She's shown me what you tried to tell me all those years ago, that love is the only thing that really matters. Mia looked up at Rachel with those wise green eyes. Mommy's not mad at you, Aunt Rachel. She told me in a dream that she's proud of how brave you got. She did? Oh. She said guardian angels don't get mad. They just love harder until the broken pieces grow back together. Mia pulled a folded paper from her jacket pocket. I made this for her. The drawing showed 3 figures holding hands under a rainbow Sarah, with angel wings, Mia with pigtails, and Rachel with a smile. Above them, written in careful 7-year-old script, were the words, My family, love never dies. This is beautiful, sunshine. I want to leave it with Mommy so she knows we're okay. Mia placed the drawing against the headstone, weighing it down with a small stone. Mommy, I'm in 2nd grade now, and I'm really good at math. Aunt Rachel takes me to school every day and helps with homework and makes terrible pancakes. But I eat them anyway because they're made with love. Rachel laughed through her tears. Hey, my pancakes are getting better. A little better, Mia giggled, then turned serious again. And Mommy, we have a house with a garden now, and I planted the marigolds you loved. Aunt Rachel says when they bloom, it's like you're sending us sunshine kisses. As they sat together in the peaceful afternoon light, Rachel felt something shift. In her chest, the heavy weight of guilt beginning to ease, replaced by something lighter and warmer. Sarah, she said softly, I promise I'll raise her the way you would have. I'll teach her to be brave and kind, and to believe in the magic of love. I'll make sure she knows how much you wanted her, how much you sacrificed for her, how much you loved her. Mia leaned against Rachel's shoulder. She knows, Aunt Rachel. Love like Mommy's doesn't get forgotten. It just changes into new shapes. Like how caterpillars become butterflies, but they're still the same beautiful thing inside. As they walked back to the car, Mia skipped ahead, turning to wave at the headstone. Bye, Mommy. See you in my dreams. Rachel looked back once more at Sarah's grave, and for the first time since her sister's death, she felt peace instead of pain. Sarah was gone, but her love lived on in every smile Mia shared, every wise word she spoke, every moment of joy they built together. The sister she'd lost had given her the daughter she'd never known she needed. And somehow, that felt exactly like the kind of miracle Sarah would have orchestrated. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows of their Brooklyn brownstone as Rachel stood at the stove, carefully flipping pancakes while Mia sat at the breakfast table practicing Mandarin characters. The scene was so perfectly ordinary, so beautifully mundane, that Rachel still sometimes had to pinch herself to believe it was real. Aunt Rachel, how do you say I love you in Chinese? Mia asked, her tongue poking out in concentration as she traced the characters. W-A-D ni, Rachel replied, her pronunciation still clumsy despite months of language lessons. She was determined to help Mia stay connected to David's heritage, even if it meant embarrassing herself with beginner's Mandarin classes twice a week. W-I ni, Aunt Rachel, Nia beamed. W-I ni too, sunshine. Rachel's phone buzzed with yet another text from her former business partner. The Hong Kong deal is falling apart without you. When are you coming back to reality? She deleted it without responding. This was her Reality Now school drop-offs, homework help, grocery shopping, and family dinners. Her corporate wardrobe had been replaced by jeans and comfortable sweaters. Her penthouse was a distant memory. Her schedule revolved around a 7-year-old's needs, and she had never been happier. Are you excited about parent night tonight? Rachel asked, setting a plate of slightly lopsided pancakes in front of Mia. So excited. I can't wait to show you my science project about butterflies. Mia took a big bite and grinned. These are your best pancakes yet, Rachel laughed. You say that every morning. Because they keep getting more love here. At 3:30 p.m., Rachel stood with the other parents outside Mia's elementary school, no longer the intimidating CEO in designer suits, but simply another mom waiting for her child. Some of the other parents had stopped whispering about her dramatic life change and started including her in their conversations about soccer schedules and bake sales. Rachel called Maria Santos, whose daughter Sophia was Mia's best friend. Are you free for coffee after pickup? The kids want to plan Sophia's birthday party. I'd love that, Rachel replied, marveling at how natural those words felt now. When Mia burst through the school doors, her face lit up at seeing Rachel. Aunt. Rachel, guess what? I got picked to read my butterfly story at the assembly. That's wonderful, baby. As they walked home hand in hand, Mia chattering about her day, Rachel caught their reflection in a shop window. The woman looking back at her was someone she barely recognized, relaxed, smiling, genuinely happy. Not the polished, perfect version of success she'd spent 40 years building, but something infinitely more valuable. That evening, Rachel understood with crystal clarity that Sarah had orchestrated this miracle from beyond. Her sister's love had guided them to each other at the exact moment when both their hearts needed healing. The CEO, who'd valued money above all else, was gone forever. In her place sat a mother who discovered that the only currency that truly mattered was love, and in that, she was the richest woman alive. Sunshine promise? Mia whispered. Sunshine promise, Rachel replied. Forever and always. The little girl who'd begged for help in the snow had given her everything she'd never known she needed. And in saving Mia, Rachel had finally found her way home.